Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, we have such a treat. I'm going to be speaking with Denise Marsh. And if you haven't heard of Denise, you need to check her out. She's an acclaimed author and transformational mindset guide, empowering women to embrace self-love, shift their beliefs to prioritize their dreams, and redesign their lives. As the author of Do It For Yourselfie, a guide to loving yourself, redesigning your life, and getting aligned from within, Denise's expertise shines through her selfie workshops, engaging retreats, captivating podcast, all the things, getting raw with Denise, and inspiring speaking engagements. So I cannot wait to talk to Denise this morning. I think you're going to get so much out of this conversation about what it is like to be an author and how life-changing it can be. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this one. If you're writing a memoir, but you're not sure where to start, and let's face it, you're not really sure where you're going after you do get started, then you are not alone. Not having a plan for your memoir is one of the most common reasons I see that people fall off of these projects that they care about so deeply. And that's why my team created the Memoir Method Checklist. This absolutely free download is going to take you through every single step along with the timeline, all the way from your seed of an idea all the way through holding that beautiful book in your hands. And you can download it at pageandpodium.com/checklist. Happy writing. Okay, so as promised, here we are with the amazing Denise Marsh. Denise, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I am so pumped to be here today.
Well, so for those who have not read your book, I know they're going to want to go out and grab it. Tell us a little bit about what they can expect. What do you talk about in your book? What's your goal? That kind of thing.
Yes. So do it for your selfie. By first glance, someone may think like, oh, is this about taking a selfie on your phone? Absolutely not. So do it for your selfie is all about that inner work. And so in the chapters, we really break down words such as self-worth, self-validation, self-satisfaction, and a few others. And we talk about what these words really mean because somehow words have gotten lost in translation. And you hear people say, of course, I love myself. I know my self-worth. They're wearing the t-shirts, they have the coffee mugs. However, their actions aren't really lining up to what they're saying. And this is not to shame or blame anyone. It's for us to get a better awareness on what these words really mean, how they show up in our lives, how they impact us, where the lack of them may have even stemmed from, and then how we're able to enhance them to have a more fulfilled life. And so the book is meant to be your bestie on pages, an inexpensive therapy session, right? It's just that resource to help you on your own self-love journey. And in the chapters, I also include some activities so you can bring your real life into what you're reading. So that way it's not just something you read and toss, but something you can actually apply to yourself.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I will tell you, as someone who is a self-help, self-care junkie, I resonate so much with how you're talking about this because it is so frequent that we tell ourselves, oh, this is what I'm doing this for my self-worth. I'm doing this for self-love. And then is it really? Like, is eating that whole cake for your self-love? But this is, I think it's really difficult to hold on to that alignment that you talk about in this world where we're getting so many messages. So, I mean, share with us what would you say is the most common misstep that people make when it comes to kind of thinking we're doing things for ourselves and really not?
Well, the common theme is that people are actually feeling guilty about doing things for themselves. And so you would hear this too a lot on social media, even in the movies or just in conversation, where people will take a self-care activity such as getting their nails done or getting a massage, which all beautiful things, right? But they take that and say, okay, well, now I did something for myself. Like that was it. And those are nice things to do. Absolutely. However, we're talking about what you're truly doing for your peace of mind, your health, your wellness, your mental state. These are acts of self-love, is saying, hey, do I have some healthy boundaries in place? Am I surrounding myself with the right people? And people aren't really looking at self-care or self-love in that way. They're looking at it as, well, do I dress nice? Do I do nice things for myself? And so again, those are important too. But what's most important is how are you feeling on the inside? And how are you actually living your life day to day? Those are true indicators of how you're treating yourself. And so for a lot of people, I hear a lot from my clients how they feel guilty about doing things for themselves, especially if they have a family or if they have, parents they take care of or children or a partner, and they're just thinking, well, isn't it bad if I do this for myself? Or shouldn't I, I would rather go take a bubble bath, but should I go watch a movie with my kids instead, even though they've been driving me bananas all day? It's this where they feel it's an either or, and it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be them and me. So it's really just shifting the way that we see ourselves in our lives instead of seeing, well, this is my life, but I'm put it on the back burner. And so the misstep is people are not treating themselves well because they're not even considering themselves. They're considering everyone else before themselves. And that's the problem.
Oh my gosh, this is so true. And when I talk to aspiring authors, I hear this all the time because, as you know so well, it takes a lot of time. It can take a lot of money to get through a book. And I will hear people say, like, well, I just don't know if I can justify spending that on this little thing, which, as we both know, writing a book is not a little thing. But
No.
I'll hear people say, like, well, but I want to write it for my daughter, so she has my stories. And that is great. But what I love about your message is that you're saying, like, you matter too. You matter just as much.
Yes, absolutely. And that message I feel has been lost a bit, or you will notice now that message is becoming a lot clearer for people. But for a very long time, it's been this, well, is it okay that I do something just for me or something that just feels good for me? And that's another thing that people feel they have to put an emphasis on things like, well, if I want to do it, don't I have to do it for a purpose? No, you can do it just because it feels good. So even with writing a book, there may be someone, I'm sure you've had clients who come to you and say, I just want to write a book because I just want to write a book. It's just something that I've always wanted to do. And sometimes people feel like that's not enough. They feel like, well, do I have to say I'm doing this to leave a legacy? Do I have to say this I'm doing this to? No, it can just be because it feels good for me and I want to do it.
Yes. And it will feel good. I mean, this is the thing I really try to share a lot is like, I know it's hard to kind of put a financial number or a time number or an energy number on what the meaning of this transformation is going to be. And we were talking
Mhm.
before we started the recording that when you're writing it, you don't even really know what it's going to be like until you get to the end of that. And then it's suddenly, it's a different, it's like stepping into a different kind of plane or a different universe. So yeah, the
Yes.
self-care, I think, and just, I love this message of caring about yourself and caring for yourself enough to
Mhm.
take whatever the plunge is. I think probably folks watching, writing a book is probably top of list, but you help with people with all kinds of things.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, when it comes to that, wanting to do a big project, such as writing a book, or whatever that project may be, or whatever it is that you're wanting to accomplish, sometimes you actually find out more about yourself through that process. I know for me, while I was writing the book, I wasn't expecting to have a lot of new realizations about myself or some new like, oh my gosh, wow, or even bringing things back up, some things that I brought up in the book, didn't affect me as much as I thought they would, where there were other parts that affected me way more than I thought it would. So it was also a journey of me growing as I was writing the book. So that was a really sweet surprise. But you're right, when you start the book you may have an idea in mind of, okay, this is what I'm doing, but as you go through it, or even once you're done with the finished work, you're thinking, okay, all right, maybe I feel different about this. And it's okay. It really is okay to say, hey, I first started writing this book because I wanted to use it to maybe get me more speaking gigs, to be a more accomplished speaker. And then after you write the book and time goes on, you may feel like, actually, I would rather use this book to take me down a path of just doing private book readings or workshops. Like that feels more aligned with and that's okay to have that pivot, through the process.
Yes, I love that. Well, and that really brings me to the question I have just been dying to ask you. Did you struggle with putting in the time and energy and all this stuff into your book? How did you decide it was time to start?
Okay. Yeah, there it was It was a journey for sure. And I always knew that I wanted to write a book. Like I always knew since I was a little girl that I wanted to write a book. I didn't always know exactly what the first book would be. I had an idea at one point. However, when the time was coming close, like, oh, it's time. I want to write this book. It's time for this. I just opened myself up to just being okay with that idea that it's time, it's okay. And the way that we talk to ourselves really does help or hinder us, right? And so I had to talk with myself and tell myself why I was doing this and that it's okay if I didn't know all the answers right away. And thankfully, I did hire support to help me through the book journey, which was wonderful. Like, definitely investing in yourself, investing in professionals, I highly recommend, okay? Highly. And that did help because there were definitely times when I felt very confident in what I was doing. I was excited, like this is going to happen. And then there were times when I would pause and say, what am I doing? Who who's going to even read this book? Like, what why am I just doing this for the heck of it and it's just going to just sit there, like what, so there were times when I would have those moments that would creep in to kind of ask me, who do you think you are to do this? And then I would take a moment and say, I'm Denise. That's who I am. And I'm going to do this, And so, even for someone, whom I'm a transformational mindset coach and I am very confident within myself and I do like and love myself. However, I'm still human and I do still have moments where I may question something or may pause and have to think, like reshift the way I'm thinking about something because it's not going the right direction. And that happened during the book writing journey. And there were times I had to refigure out my groove when it came to writing. At first I would schedule writing days. I quickly realized that didn't always work for me because I felt forced sometimes. I'm like, okay, Thursday and Friday I'm going to write. And then Thursday and Friday would come and I have no idea what to put down. But then there would be days on a random Tuesday. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these ideas. And so what I did is, instead of me forcing myself to do it a certain way, I just said, let me do it in a way that feels right and just go from there. And that took some pressure off and allowed me to enjoy the journey a whole lot more. But it is a journey. So you have those ebbs and flows. And, even if you walk into it with a lot of confidence, it's okay if you have a few moments of, what am I doing? It's okay, and having the support definitely is a game changer. So again, I highly recommend having some type of support in that journey as well.
Yes, here, here. And yeah, no, especially you were like, oh, I was going to write on Thursday and Friday. I cannot write on Thursday and Friday. I'm a professional writer. So I think, so I love that because I think part of it true is just realizing what is your creative flow. I can't write in the evenings. I am brain dead. But a lot of people, that's when they really feel creative and alive. And so I think you're right that it's kind of trusting yourself, backing off,
Mhm.
staying as much as you can off of all those writers groups where people will, I think too often share what works for them as though it's universal.
Mhm.
No universal. Yeah.
No, it's not a one size fits all. You have to find your groove. And with that, some frustration can come too, because you may have a plan in mind or an idea of what the journey will look and feel like. And you have to be okay with knowing that may not be it. You may have to shift and just do things in a different way. And that's okay. I feel that sometimes people get really like hold so tight to, well, this is the plan and this is how it has to be done. But when it comes to writing a book, you know, especially if it's your first time writing a book, you really don't know what to expect. And so giving yourself that grace through the journey, through the process, and leaning on the support that you have, that helps a whole lot. But also just truly believing that this is something that I want to do, regardless of the outcome. It's sometimes if you think too far into like, I'm going to sell 1 million copies and I'm going to do this. And it's great to have goals. It is wonderful to have like, these are things I aspire to do with my book. However, knowing like to your core, like the real purpose of why you're writing it. And I'm sure the real purpose of why you're writing it isn't to sell 1 million copies, right? That may be one of your goals, but you're not putting in all of this time, money, and energy just to say, just for this one goal. It's something deeper. And so as long as you stay true to that, that will definitely help through the journey when it starts to get a little challenging.
I love that. Yeah, I say that all the time, actually. I promise I did not prep Denise to say all of my talking points. No, I think that's exactly right. We all want sales goals. And especially because you are investing so much of yourself into writing
Mhm,
a book. So I would never say like you shouldn't have sales goals. And Denise, you're saying that too. Like, of
mhm.
course you have that goal. That's a good goal.
Yes.
But it's first of all, it's uncertain. You don't, first of all, I don't even think you know if it's going to happen, and you don't even know if that's what you're going to end up wanting in the end,
Mhm.
right? You want to sell 1 million copies, like there are things that come along with that that are actually might be pretty unpleasant. Like, are you ready to get on a plane the second that you get a call from such and such publicist? Are you ready for all of just the complications with a big scale project? So, but I think the other piece, and I love that you're saying this, is that a lot of times when we finish writing that book, we do want the book in front of people, but we also realize that the book can get us in front of people so that we can also
Yes.
interact with people. And I do find a lot of folks I work with, they want that mass media, the book's out there, we've got thousands of people reading it. That is such a good feeling. But the missing piece a lot of times is I miss talking to people, like if you're
Yes.
used to
Mhm.
even social media, if you're used to any kind of in-person consulting, coaching, retreats, you kind of feel like you lose a little bit of that when you go to a book because you can't see what people are saying. They're not replying
Sure.
to your social media. They're not saying back to you, oh my God, I love that story, the way that they might at the end of
Mhm.
the keynote or the way that, in other circumstances.
Yes, yes, and, that actually has become more of what I want to do, and so I knew one of my goals was to utilize my book as a way to get me in more places, so get me more speaking engagements, and while that is still a goal, what I've also found is that I've been really enjoying the more intimate settings as well. So I've been enjoying the workshops. I've been enjoying the book readings. I've been enjoying like being in the space where we can have open conversation about topics from my book. And that has been beautiful because it's been bringing about more people having open and honest conversations in a setting that they normally wouldn't be a part of. And so I've been loving that, like really, truly, honestly loving having the book to be a resource in those settings where I still get to be a part with other people. I still get to interact with them and where they can ask questions and they can also feel like, oh, wait, I'm not alone when I'm thinking about my self worth. I'm not alone when thinking, well, I don't even know if I like or love myself. And so even being able to be in that space with them has been such a gift. And so the book itself can just do so many things for you. And writing the book it's really just kind of that magical piece, and maybe magical is not the right word, but it's that piece, that tool that you can truly utilize in so many ways, like so many creative, unique ways. You don't have to do everything traditionally. You could say, you know what, I want to use this book to do this other cool thing. The book can just be a really great starting point or a reframing point for you, but it really does give you so many options. And that's been one of the biggest, like, if you think about your return on investment, honestly, you can't even put a dollar amount on that because the opportunities truly are they just keep coming. They just keep coming.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, it kind of segues me into the next question, which is what would you say is the coolest result? So not necessarily, like you're saying, not like necessarily the highest ROI or not necessarily, the thing that you speak about on stages, but what it personally for you is the coolest result out of having published a book?
So the coolest, actually, one of the coolest things that happened. So I'll make the story super short. It's a really fun story. So 2022, or so in 2022, in the summer, August, my husband and I were on a cruise, and that was also the year my book was going to be publicly published, and so I remember being on that big cruise ship. It was a celebrity cruise line. And I went into their library on the ship and I was just standing there and just imagining my book being on their shelf. And so later that night at dinner, I told my husband, I said, while you were working on your tan, I was in the library imagining my book on the shelf. And it would be really cool if one day my book is on the shelf on this cruise ship. And he said, okay, well, next time we go on the cruise, we'll just bring a copy and put it on the shelf. And I'm like, no, I want to do it the right way. Like, I want them to ask me, but I don't even know how that works. Okay, that was August. My book came out a few months later. The following month, I get a call from someone connected with Celebrity Cruise Line asking me if I wanted to host my own theme cruise based off my book on one of their ships.
Oh my gosh. They up
I
leveled
did not
your
contact
dream.
them. I I didn't even contact them. Like, this happened, and I was thinking, like, "Is this a dream? Am I being punked? Is this real life?" That was such a cool moment, and then we just got back, last month from that actual cruise, and it was a beautiful experience, and I'm doing it again next year. So Celebrity Cruise Line has offered me, if I wanna do this every year, I can, and just because of my book. So I hosted a themed cruise on a big cruise ship because of my book. And so that was really flipping cool. And what's even cooler about it, it wasn't one of my goals, right? It was just my if you want to take a goal, like I just said, I would love to have my book on their shelf, but instead of my book being on the shelf, I had people on there with the copies of my book, and we're doing workshops about my book on a big cruise line. Like, that was epic. Okay, so
Oh my
that was a
gosh.
really cool thing that came from this book.
That is an amazing story. They leveled up your goal. They were like, we see your
Yes.
goal and we'll raise you a themed cruise.
Yes, so that was unexpected and, like, wow, okay. Truly, seriously, the possibilities are just everywhere, everywhere.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, and I know if you're watching this video, you are probably thinking, I would like to go on one of those cruises. I think this all the time with Denise. We are going to give you some information, but you have to keep watching because we have other smart, important things to share first. So, Denise, talk to me about, do you think that you would have been ready to write this in, say, 2012, 2008? I mean, if we go back years and years, do you feel like you would have been ready, or was there something about kind of those early, the 2020, 2021, that really was like, this is the time?
I would say 2008, 2012, I would not have been ready. I needed to still go through some experiences that led me to the point where I felt now was the time. And even at that point when I had that strong urge that now is the time, there was even a time that during that time where I thought, okay, well, maybe I should wait a little bit more longer. Maybe I should wait. But I said, then I reminded myself, well, no, I can write this book and then I can write another one later. Like,
Yes.
so sometimes we tell ourselves we have to put it off because, oh, but I have all these other ideas too. Great. That can be book two, book three, book four. Right. And so I took that and said, I'm feeling this fire now. Let me run with it. Let me go with it now. And so I really do feel that having that, like when I hired the book coach, when I did that, that was a huge, huge, huge motivator for me as well, because I wasn't just like flailing around like, okay, I'm just going to write some words. It was like having that guidance and someone who knows all the ins and outs of how to write a book the right way, how to get it seen, how to get it, all of the things. Having that helped me along the way, because even though I am definitely a self-starter, I am highly motivated. I could see that if I was just doing it on my own, it most definitely would not have gone as smooth if I had not hired the book coach. So yeah, I feel that back some years ago, I wasn't ready, but that was also because just where I was in my mindset and just life in general. But when the time came that I have this urge, it's time, I had to run with it. I had to go with it.
I love that. Yes. And I love what you're saying about book coaching. I mean, it's not only that you have an expert, but I hear you also talking about the accountability of it, that you have somebody
Yes.
who knows you're supposed to be working on it. And I have clients tell me all
Yes.
the time, I would not have written this week if I didn't know that I was going to have to see you and tell you I hadn't written this week.
Yes, it definitely keeps you on track. And also just having someone who's not a friend, who's not a family member, but someone who can give you really good feedback and say, okay, I see what you're trying to say right here, but what about this way? Or what if it was just like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. It was really great having that back and forth and just having someone who was really interested in what I was wanting to create and being pretty much like a partner with me. Like that was gold. I love that.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Well, what was your favorite part of the writing and publishing process?
Ooh, my favorite part, I would say one of my favorite parts was getting my complete transcript back. That was, and I remember too, when I received the transcript back to go over it, like just make any edits or see if I needed anything. And I had it printed out and I went to pick it up from the printing place. And my daughter, it was around the time my daughter was going to have her baby. And I remember being in the hospital room, like while she's, hoping to have the baby one of those days soon. I'm sitting there and just going through it and thinking like, this is so cool. Like I'm going through my transcript. This is something you see on a movie, like where the author is sitting in the hospital room with their daughter, waiting for the baby to be born, and they're just making edits and like emailing the book coach back or the publisher. And it's this is my life. This is really cool. And so it wasn't in that moment, it felt so real. Even though you're going through it and it's real, but it's like, wow, this is really real. So that was one of my favorite parts. And choosing my book cover was another favorite part because it's like this is what people are going to see. So it was just a really for me it was like this is so important, like what they're going to see. And my ultimate moment was when I received the package with my book, like opening that up, and it was just this is my book. This is mine. And it was just this, all of your work, all of the tears, all of everything it was worth it. Like it was worth it for me to be actually holding a copy of my work, my time. Like like and there's nothing that can take that away. Like there's nothing that can take that feeling away. It's like no matter what happens, I wrote a book. Like no matter what happens after this, I actually wrote a book. And it's just one of those things that could never be taken away from you. And it's just something you did that it was that was an amazing moment.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, what you're saying, I mean, it does kind of become part of your identity. And you
Mhm.
see that if you go to LinkedIn and search rather published author, you'll see that a lot of people have published author in their bio. I don't think that's a coincidence. And I don't think it only is because it opens so many opportunities, although it does. And having that in your byline is a good idea. But I think it's a lot of what you're saying too, Denise, is that it becomes kind of, it's like, oh my God, I just blew my own mind. Like I
Yes.
am this thing that I have admired in other people and I have felt like was so unattainable. And you said earlier, like, who do I think I am? And it like you have broken through those barriers at that point that you were holding that book in your hand.
Oh yeah. It's even now. So my book came out in 2022 and this is 2024, and that was the other thing too. In the beginning, I felt I had to do everything at once. And you quickly learn like that's not realistic, right? You just like I want to do a book tour, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's almost for me, I can speak for myself, it felt like I had to have a plan like to do everything. And no, like you could take your time with whatever. And so even now what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to local bookstores to see about getting my book in their stores. And so it doesn't have to be you have to do everything at once. Like your book isn't going anywhere. So even 5 years after it's published, you can still say, okay, what do I want to do with this now? Do I want to have a relaunch? Do I want to do, there's so many things you can do with it and continue using it as a tool, like continue using it. And so it's just one of those things that I tell myself, I have something that I can do so many cool things with. I have some really fun projects in mind that I want to do with the book that I'm really excited about. And so that's in the works. And so even just wow, these are some fun, cool things I can do, for my clients or for whoever. It's again, I can everyone go write a book. Like it's just
Go do it.
fun. It is really fun to have your own book.
Yes. Yeah.
It's fun.
And that is so true. I think the media tells us that you have your launch day, and that is the only day that matters. And it is just not that way for most authors. If you
Mm-mm.
have got millions of people on your email list and, it's a huge, huge book deal and your publisher has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in you, maybe. Even then, though, you hear from those people a year later, they're still doing that grind. It's kind of what I was getting at earlier with the, are you sure you want to sell 1 million copies? But but yeah, I love what you're saying, that you can continue to think creatively about what that book could do for you and your readers and the world.
Mhm.
And you're going to get ideas. It sounds like you've experienced this. You're going to get ideas from the things you do. So like whatever you first start for your marketing, that's going to give you ideas for the next thing and the next thing. And if you think of it in that kind of creative, generative, exciting way, you're going to be able to do it for the long haul. It's if you're like,
Yes.
it's got to be that first day. And then, it's like kind of white knuckle trying to get it out that first day. Like, it's just so unpleasant. Who would want to do that for
Yeah.
any amount of time?
Yeah, and it can add a lot of disappointment if you try to just front load everything at once and then you get to it and you're like, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm a failure." You're not a failure. You just got really excited and that's okay. But take your time with things. Just relish having the book and say, "Okay, what's the one thing I really want to do within the first year or within the first 6 months?" Right? And what would be some really cool things that I can do later? That can also give you that freedom to not try to do it all at once, but say, here are 5 things I would love to do with my book, but what I'm most excited about is this. So great. That's what I want to do within 6 months of the book coming out, and so it gives you that something to do, but something also to look forward to with all the other future projects with it. And as time goes on, you will be inspired to do something completely different with it, and so even the cool things that I'm, you know, putting together now for this year and next year, I wasn't considering doing that a year ago, but I'm like, oh, this would be a good idea. So even as you go along, and even your readers may have suggestions for you, it's like, hey, have you thought about doing something like this? And you're like, oh, no, but that's a great idea. Thank you. So it really is just such I just keep saying fun experience because it really is a fun experience. Like, sure, you're gonna feel a lot of other things too, but it really is fun just knowing that, hey, I have something that is for me, is for others, is something that I can continue to play around with and do really cool and unique things with.
Yeah. And I think for you, what I've seen is it's almost a foundation for your community. It's almost like this
Mhm.
root system that then all of these other things grow out of. I love it.
Yes. Yes, 1 trillion%. And it has been kind of like the root of things. And then, you know, the way my coaching works, it pretty much surrounds like the book. My retreats are definitely themed after the book, just all the different pieces. And even now I am branching into even another area for my business that's a little bit different from what I've been doing, but I also know like, hey, this is also going to be a book one day, so it's just once you write the first book, then you're like, hey, when's the next? Yeah.
Yes.
When's the next? And it also feels a little bit easier. No, like I did it once, so I know I can do it again. So it gives you that first book, gives you that momentum of even if you don't want to write another book, but it just makes it whatever the next thing I want to create, I now know that I really can do it because I wrote a book. So not saying that the book is like the epitome, like that's like saying like this is if once you've written a book, you can do anything, but once you've written a book, you can do a lot of things, right? You can do a lot of things just knowing like, wow, I did something that is not the easiest thing to do. And I finished it, right? It gives you that momentum, it gives you that confidence, it gives you that like that drive to go to the next thing, that whatever it is that you want to bring forth.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, y'all, you are going to want to go get this book. Denise, you mentioned the cover, and your cover is so good. So, anyway, if you have not seen this book, oh, yes, look at how good that cover is. Oh, it's so good. So, Denise, tell us where we can buy your book, but also if folks want to work with you with retreats or coaching, how can they get in touch?
Yes. So to get in touch with me, my website is super simple, denisemarsh.net. So Marsh, Marsh, denisemarsh.net. And you can find ways on there to schedule a call with me, to get on a complimentary love chat. You'll see events that I have coming up with retreats and just everything I have going on, and even my 2025 cruise that's themed after the book. So you'll see that information there as well. And if you are wanting to purchase my book, Do It For Your Selfie, first, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you can find it on most online retailers. So you can find it on target.com, barnesandnoble.com, booksamillion.com, amazon.com. But most online retailers, you can find my book.
Amazing. Buy it. And then, you know what I'm going to say? Leave her a review. It's the best gift that you can give to any author. Well, Denise, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining and sharing so much incredible wisdom and advice. I really appreciate having you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, Amanda.
If you are using the beautiful momentum of spring to restart your memoir, but you're not sure how to get started, or you're worried you're going to fall off track the same way you maybe have years before, well, I've got a resource for you. It's called the Memoir Method Checklist. And my team developed this based on the systems and strategies we have used for years to write dozens of memoirs and help dozens more authors write their own. It's going to take you through all of the steps from your very first seed of an idea all the way to getting that memoir out, whether you want to self-publish, traditionally publish, or find a hybrid press like Page and Podium. You can download this resource absolutely free at pageandpodium.com/checklist. And once you do, let me know what you find helpful. I would love to hear about you and your book and your writing journey. Happy writing.